All right, everyone, welcome back to the Kimberly Hoyt podcast from Start to Investor. Today, you have a special treat. I am here with my sweet friend, Hannah Casey, and we are going to dive into some different areas of investing that maybe might be new to you. I know it's new to me, so I'm excited to learn with you today with Hannah. So Hannah, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So glad to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm really excited to talk to you about this.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm excited to learn. So let's first start with, let's kind of go back to the beginning. Tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of a little bit about your background, but then also how did you get into investing? Like what sparked your interest there?
Okay, perfect. So my background professionally is I'm a CPA and I work in the commercial real estate space. I've done that for about 10 years. And I work for a company, similar to like your BlackRock, like State Street, Vanguard, the most powerful companies in the world. But I saw the returns that they were making on all of these commercial deals. And I kind of got to see an inside glimpse of, like how they did the deals and how they negotiated terms and different stuff like that. And I was thinking to myself that I am on the wrong side of the desk. Like it just kind of clicked, right? And I know a lot of us come from a corporate job and like the employee mindset, and that's a whole other journey we can get into. But I started there, and then I happened to be just coming out of like a pretty devastating breakup at the time. And I saw a little advertisement come across Facebook, and it was for a women's real estate educational class for $17. And I thought, okay, what do I have to lose? So I take the class. I've always been interested in real estate. And I remember like growing up, when my family, we didn't have a lot of money, we would just go to like model homes for fun, like for a fun activity to tour them. And so, it had always been in the back of my mind. I just wasn't equipped with the information to move forward. So I took this class, and then that led into me joining the Women's Real Estate Investor Network, where I met you, girl. And that was the best decision I've ever made in my life, because I really just committed to it. It was an investment, and I thought, okay, I'm going to learn this business and I'm going to apply it. So that was kind of how I got my start. It was just a perfect storm of different things coming together.
Awesome. Okay. So, and when did you start? When was that?
So I think I started the class in like summer of 2021. So
Okay.
about 2 years ago. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So tell us about your real estate journey from kind of that beginning. Have we done some deals? What are you working out? What is your passion in this? Because there's so many different ways. I think that's what people maybe don't know going into it. Like there's so many different ways that you can be an investor. So was there any things that you tried on that you're like, nope, I'm not doing that? And where did you find kind of like your niche or where you want to be in investing?
Yeah, that's such a good point, Kimberly. I mean, there's so many ways you can go. And this is one of the things I might kind of like caution people starting out is don't be like me. Don't be the shiny squirrel girl, shiny object syndrome.
Yep.
Squirrel zone girl. So I looked at doing like land development. I looked at doing short-term rentals, midterm rentals. Wholesaling is initially how I wanted to start out. And I think because a lot of people who teach real estate, they recommend to start with that to kind of build up your capital. So I was a little bit all over the place. I did start out trying to wholesale. I did the whole off market marketing with the cold calling, getting cursed out and door knocking, which were all really good things for me to do because it started to get me over the fear, which is, I think, just part of this business and something that everybody has to confront. So I was doing that in Dallas, Texas. That's where I was living at the time. So that's where I started out. And Yeah, I did a lot of marketing. Unfortunately, back in like 2021, early 2022, the market was just really hot and I got rejected a lot of times.
Mhm.
People weren't really like looking to make a deal as much.
Mhm.
We did get me and one other Reen sister who were working together at the time. We did get our first 70 cent deal under contract.
Yeah.
It didn't go through, but
Darn
there was a a title issue
it.
dealing with an ex-spouse, but that's okay. Like we saw it was doable, kept going, kept pushing. So I ended up moving to Louisiana, South Louisiana, about a year in
Mhm.
and looking for deals here. And really I was still doing the marketing, but I was really, really focused on networking since it
Mhm.
is a smaller community and kind of everybody in the investor network knows each other. So I finally ended up getting a referral from another investor, and I'll kind of give you a tip on why I think he gave it to me. And I know you're a Gator, you're in
Mhm.
Pace's group. I love Pace, like I love that whole community, and he always talks about being a go-giver and
Right.
offering value.
Right.
So I met this older gentleman who was retired, and he knew how to like do work and rehab, and so
Mhm.
he kind of wanted to do this for fun and to kind of like preserve his retirement wealth, right? So he didn't really like go get any education. He just jumped in. He didn't
Okay.
know anything about creative financing or some of the more advanced strategies. So I would take him to coffee and just teach him like
Okay.
all of these strategies I hadn't actually done.
Sure.
But I guess I pulled it off. I guess he thought I knew what I was talking about enough. And so he calls me up one day and he said, "Hey, my daughter's friend is going through a divorce and they want to get rid of the house. They want me to take it. I am tied up with my other projects. Do you want to take a crack at it?" And I said, "Do I?"
Yes, I do.
I have been waiting. So ended up reaching out to her and was able to negotiate a deal, um, a very good, clean textbook 70 cent deal.
Nice.
And I kept that I rehabbed it and I kept it as a rental. And truthfully, I'm kind of glad I was able to just jump in and like do the whole deal rather than wholesale it, because I think it gives you more hands-on experience and education in different areas that I can take forward now. So that one's rented out. We've refied, we bird.
Yes, yes.
I had actually was lucky enough to find a private money lender. So I put up the money for the small amount of rehab, but I got everything back on the refi. So really I'm into it with no cash. So for all
No.
of the people out there who hear that and they think like, what? Like that's crazy. Because I know I didn't really like believe it necessarily at first, right? But yes, what they say is true. This is very doable. So that one's rented, like I said, and then I was kind of like looking for my next thing, and I was like, okay, that was cool and all, but it didn't give me as much of an emotional charge as I thought it would. And so I was I was just going through emails and I had an advertisement for a class on shared housing.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, this is really, really interesting.
Mhm.
And so it was a group out of Oregon who do this at a high level. And they work primarily with sober living. So kind of like halfway houses, transitional housing, but for people who are in the recovery community. And there were other people that worked with people coming out of prison, um, adults who have aged out of the foster care system, domestic abuse survivors, trafficking survivors. Just there's many different demographics that this can be applied to. But I just remember watching the presentation and just being totally upfront, just ugly crying, like alone at my desk. But it really, really, really moved me. And I felt like the Holy Spirit, or, you know, the universe, or whatever you believe, was speaking to me in that moment. And I just thought, this is it. So I went all in on that, and I just secured my first group home. We are preparing to open October 7th, ready or not. So
Awesome.
yes, very exciting. So that's kind of where things are now.
Okay, so what I love is, right, you kind of started at the beginning, right, where we all are told we're supposed to start as the wholesaling thing, right? And you know, you tried it. And I think one of the biggest things that I found with Pace's group is this whole avatar series of, like, there's different ways you can be in investing, and you're not going to resonate with all of them. And that's okay. And you do need to find your space. And you may think like, oh, this thing, you know, because I got into it thinking like, oh, I want to wholesale. That sounds fantastic. And then I was like, oh, I don't really want to wholesale. That sounds horrible, you know? And so I think it's nice that you learn and you know the different strategies, and then can say like, okay, yes, like this is totally me, or this totally isn't, and that's okay. Because and it's a community, right? Like we need different people to perform different parts of that investing journey, so that we can all work together. And I think that's really cool. So, and I love that, you know, you did the fix and flip, or the fixer upper, the rehab, and then turn it into that BRRRR. So you've done that. And like you said, you didn't have that, like, oh, that felt so good. It was just kind of like, okay,
It's like, all right, I have
like
some equity now.
that was great. But, you know, so I love that this really is where your passion is and where your impact can be. Cause I think that's the magic, right? Where the
Yes.
impact that you can have in working this investing journey can create an income. Cool. But the impact that you can have is so important, right? And I think, you know, if we're just chasing dollars, guess what happens when you chase something? It runs away, you know? So
Yes,
if we're chasing,
literally.
yeah, so if we're chasing money, like it feels tedious, you know? But when we're working towards making an impact, man, is that inspiring, and the income will come. So tell us a little bit about this deal maybe, and kind of how you found it, and what this new property is going to be for, and the impact that you're going to make with it.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So, and I actually needed to open up my mind a little bit on this, because, you know, coming from the real estate background, investing background, you think like, okay, like we're buying houses, right? That's what we're doing. So a mentor in the shared housing space encouraged me to think about, also be willing to lease a home from another investor, from another landlord. And so I said, okay, you're right. This isn't about me. I will buy and I will lease, and that will allow me to scale this as fast as possible and help the most amount of people, you know, who are vulnerable, like today. So I literally just threw out a Facebook post in our local RIA group and said, hey, I'm looking to work with landlords who want to increase their return, have more control over their property, and get back to the community. And a lot of people called me.
Nice. That's awesome.
And if you think about it, it makes sense because, you know, I am a landlord. Thankfully, I've had a great tenant. So it hasn't been an issue, but we've all heard the horror stories of people who are qualified renters trashing a house, you know, not letting them know when something breaks. And so it's very counterintuitive, but the shared housing model is actually much better for landlords. And like, I'll give you a couple of reasons why. But anyhow, I spoke with 3 different gentlemen who were all like very interested in this. One, I went and looked at his house. It wasn't quite the right fit, and we can talk about what makes a good home for this model. The second one, we went and saw his house, and I spoke with him, and I knew immediately this is going to be a partnership. So he actually was already interested in this space. He started to get the house ready for it to be a sober living, and in the process realized, oh, like, I have no time to do this, because it is more management intensive, right? And you can look at it in terms of like work, risk, and reward. So your cash flow on this model is going to be very similar to your more short-term rental type of exit strategy. With the short-term rental, with this, it requires a little extra work. So it just kind of depends on what your needs are. If you are an investor and you don't want to be an operator necessarily, you can lease your home to someone like me, which is exactly what I'm doing, and still be involved. So there's a lot of different ways to get into it. So yeah, him and I kind of got to talking, and he was like, yeah, I like what you're doing. Let's do this one. If it goes well, let's keep doing them. So I said, yes, sir. Where do I sign?
I like it. Nice. Right. And I love that, because a couple of things. One, the partnership, right? Because when we can expand and work with others, that interplay will help us continue to expand, right? If you were just going in it like, no, I need to buy the house, I need to be in control, I versus
Right.
we can do so much more than just I. So I love that. So that's great. So yeah, let's talk about what makes a property, a house, conducive to a shared living space. What does that look like? What do investors need to be looking for in order to get into this space?
Okay, yeah, definitely. And I guess, like, first thing I'll say off the top is it depends on the population you're serving. So it's like, okay, you can think about it logically. Like, if you're doing a senior home, you probably don't want stairs, right? Just like little things like that. But overall, I would say what makes a really good property for this, and what is going to give you, the business person, the investor, because we can't help people without a business, right? Is going to be getting the larger home. So the more people you can comfortably fit in the home, please do not cram people in like sardines, because that will be a management nightmare. But that's going to give you that economies of scale, and your bottom line is going to be much more profitable. So I would say, like, minimum 4-bedroom. If you can find more bedrooms, the better. Minimum 2-bathroom. If you can find more bathrooms, the better. So that's that's a minimum, but you can go as big as what you can find, which is kind of great, because there doesn't seem to be as much competition for these larger single family homes, because they're harder to rent traditionally.
Right. No, that makes sense.
I'm seeing a lot of opportunity. I've looked at a couple recently that I'm trying to make a deal on. So that's one thing. Another thing you really want to think through is parking. So ideally, you're going to want to have either like a corner lot, or it doesn't have to be, or like a big driveway. Just make sure, people like have enough room to park comfortably. Now, not everyone will have cars, which brings me to my next point, is you want to try to be in it. It depends on where you're at. It's harder when you're more rural, but you want to try to be like close to a bus line. For the people in the home that need that public transportation. And that is something that nonprofit agencies, like who you would be partnering with, like, seem to ask a lot. So that's a consideration. I think the layout, right? Like, it would be nice to have like some common area where they can hang out, even like in the backyard where they can grill. You're really trying to build like a family, basically. a family style cooperative living environment. So you just want it to be safe, clean, comfortable. Don't go to like the nicest neighborhood in existence, but also don't go, be a slumlord either. So you're really looking at B class, C class type neighborhoods. I would avoid HOAs at all costs. It's just easier. In theory, you could do this legally within an HOA. You would really want to, and I know people who do, but enter at your own risk. You would really want to check their bylaws, make sure one, that non-owner occupants are allowed, because that could stop you. If that is allowed, non-owner occupants, then really they have no legal case, because if you go in, you do a sober living home, and let's say like some Karen, comes at you about it, calls code compliance, you are protected with this model under the federal fair housing law, which trumps any local law, anything like that. So the fact that she's saying, oh, well, I don't want a sober living next to me, that is outright discrimination. If anything, you can sue her. So, and we can talk about it. There's a robust amount of case law supporting this model, and specifically around the Oxford housing model. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but they've been around since the 50s, like as a sober living. They've been sued. They won every time.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what area of shared housing are you focusing on? Since there's, like the all the different areas, what do you want to focus on? Where do you want to make that impact?
Yeah, so I'm really open. Initially, when I first came in, the two areas I guess you could say I was most passionate about were sober living. And that's because I've had some addiction, within my family. I've seen firsthand the effects of that, the negative effects on the person addicted and the whole family.
Right.
And so when I think about the ripple effect of serving those type of individuals, I start to get really excited. Another area I really is near and dear to my heart is the domestic abuse survivors. Obviously as women, it's just heartbreaking. And yeah, just to be able to, in either situation, kind of allow somebody to have that housing, because that's the base. Like when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
right.
The very first one is like survival based. So do I have a roof over my head? Do I have food? And it's very hard to get out of a tough situation if you don't have that. So that's kind of why I think as real estate investors, this is a very exciting opportunity and very, very needed.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned like the trafficking victims and, those coming out of prison, there's lots of different ways that you can help. So tell me a little bit about mindset, where you kind of talked of like you had a little bit of shift of mindset of going from I have to buy the house to I could lease the house. So
right.
That little bit of mindset shift helped you see things a little bit differently, changed your perspective a little bit. How has mindset, personal growth affected you in this real estate journey, as well as in your personal life?
Ooh, how much time do we have?
All right. We could go on forever.
Oh man, I'm like an unrecognizable human from when I started real estate, just honestly speaking. I like to be kind of vulnerable about this type of stuff, because I think people look at like successful investors and they think, oh, well, like they're just built different, or they had X, Y, and Z advantage. And it's really not the case. The truth is they probably got over themselves at some point
Right.
and just did it. So I'll go through like a kind of a few of my hangups, I guess, that really caused me to go like way slower on my investing journey than what needed to happen. So I think the big one is fear. And this is a natural human instinct. It is hardwired into our brains. The fear of the unknown. And real estate is a whole bunch of unknown.
A lot to learn. Yep.
It's a lot to learn. It's like drinking from a fire hose. So, and I think it's really about you just have to accept that there's probably going to be fear. And it's really not ever going to go away, because even the higher you move up, I've heard from people that are like many steps ahead of me, like there's still something you haven't done, and that fear is still going to be there. So it's just a matter of really consciously deciding, hey, I'm going to push through this anyway, and we're going to see what happens. So I think fear of failure is another big one that people get on a loop with. I know I certainly did. Also, just kind of like the employee mindset I talked about before, right? So if you're already a business owner or an entrepreneur, I think it'll be like an easier transition for you. If you're, a fully formed adult and you've been working in corporate for a while, you're going to have to take more responsibility than maybe what you're used to, because anything you create it's up to you. And that's really just true in life, but especially in real estate, you can't like wait around for somebody to save you. Like if you want it, you have to go get it. Let's see, another thing, and you kind of brought this up about the whole partnership. I was so resistant to being in a partnership when I started, and it's not even logical. I think it was probably an issue of control. So all my control freaks out there. So, again, I think the more, and if you have any kind of spiritual practice, I think that helps to lean on. But the more you can kind of like just trust, do your part, and then just like quit obsessing about the how, the more intact your sanity will be, and the further you're going to progress. So I think those are kind of like my bigger takeaways on the mindset stuff.
Yeah. And I agree, right? Fear is going to be there because we're learning, we're growing. There is so much in this business to know. You're not going to know everything, and being able to just be okay with trying it and, oh, that didn't work out, let's shift and do something else, is going to get you way farther than you waiting to learn everything before you even move, right? So there's so much growth in that learning process, and the trying, the doing, the not quite getting it right, that will move you forward so much faster than trying to learn it all on your own. Like you said, it was kind of nice to just jump into getting that first deal and going through the process. You learned a lot through it, what you would do different, what you would do better next time, right? That you would never have gotten just trying to learn the script or, get through the course kind of thing. So I think that's really, really key. And then being able to partner with others, because they're going to have skills, they're going to have experiences that you don't, you're going to complement them, they're going to complement you. And then again, together that we will move forward faster than any one of us alone. There's that whatever African proverb that is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? Together, you will move mountains way faster than you trying to do it by yourself. So I love that you have that partnership with this gentleman that you're leasing the house from, and that'll be good, because then, as this model gets working, and you'll work out the bugs in this initial one, right? And then you guys can scale it and you guys can move forward. And that's super exciting. And it's also funner, right? When we do things together with other people, it's so much funner. We have so much more of a good time and enjoyment in that process
Yes.
when we try to do it alone. So I love that. Now, when you think about that personal growth and development world that you've been in, is there something that has been really inspirational for you that really helped change things? Was it a book? Was it a podcast? Was it a person? What would you put there?
Yes, I'd be happy to share that because this gentleman changed my life. So I'm a big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza. You can like find him anywhere online. And I'm not sure how much you're familiar with him, but he got me into meditation.
Mhm.
He is a doctor. He holds seminars all over the world where people like basically like a couple thousand people go in a ballroom and just meditate all day long for a
Mhm.
week, which is kind of wild. But the science actually backs it up. So what they do is they take people's heart measurements and brain measurements with a device that can pick up on the electromagnetic field that we give off as humans. And it measured it, and he does a much better job explaining it, but it measured it before and after the meditation. And crazy things happen over this week. I'm talking people healing themselves from physical diseases. And I know that sounds out there. I wouldn't believe it either if I like hadn't have seen it actually happen.
Right.
And so he kind of got me into the concept of the power of your mind and the fact that most of your brain power is actually coming from the subconscious mind. And so if you are analytically trying to like talk yourself out of dysfunction, you're just going to be yelling at yourself all day. So it's just not very effective. Like you can scrape and you can get a little bit, but what's actually more powerful is to, get into practices like meditation, into breath work, prayer, and just get into those kind of lower brain frequency states, and
Mhm.
then to do a lot of visualizing in terms of the emotions you want to feel and the way you want your future to look. And it sounds so like out there, but it legitimately, I cannot believe how well it works. And I'm like a self-development junkie. I've done every course out there.
Love it.
So yeah, his work has been very, very helpful to me. And there's others too, like in a similar space. But
Mhm.
yeah,
That's-
just shifting that subconscious identity, I think is key,
Oh yeah.
especially as entrepreneurs.
Right. Right. And when you kind of start kind of tapping into that subconscious, right? When you start telling yourself what you want life to look like, your brain starts looking for those things and will start moving towards
Yep.
those things. And coincidence, you see it as, or other people may see it as, but it's really your brain is now and open to seeing those different opportunities that had you not been doing that work, you wouldn't notice, right? So I love that. I love that. Okay, well, we've been talking for so long. I love this. And we could go hours. I could ask you so much more about all of that. But let's wrap up with, as if you were to talk to a brand new investor, what is, and you kind of did mention this, like the shiny squirrel, like, that, but what is one piece of advice that you would give to a brand new investor, someone who's like, I want to get into this space? What piece of advice would you have for them to help them kind of, move a little bit faster than maybe we did?
Right on. um Yeah, I think if I had to say like one overarching theme, and this is something I did not do, so these are like hard learned, but try not to like just see somebody promote a course with a real estate niche and be like, okay, I'm going to do that. Like really take some time to be quiet with yourself and think, what would I actually enjoy? Because like we talked about, if you're just doing this course, if you're thinking about like, oh gosh, like I just hate my job so much, which is like exactly how I used to think, and you're thinking about what you don't want, it really blocks what you actually do want from coming in. So you know, don't feel in a rush. I would say choose your niche as early as you can, because you're not going to waste as much as time or mental effort as I did. But really just think about, what are my strengths, you know, kind of the avatar stuff. What's my skill set? What do I enjoy doing? What is something that when I'm doing it, I lose all track of time and I'm just in it, and lean into that, because this business is hard, and when things get hard, that's going to propel you. That's going to keep you from quitting. So I would just say, like, listen to yourself. Try not to just go with, you know, which real estate guru is trending at the moment.
Right. No, I love that. And this has been a theme for me over the last couple of weeks, actually talking about getting quiet and really listening. And, you know, it does kind of go back to really understanding yourself and knowing yourself, but knowing, you know, kind of knowing what you're good at, where your strengths are. You know, Dean Graziosi, I don't know if you know who he is, but he talks a lot.
I love him.
Yeah. Like, he talks a lot about, if like the things that you kind of stink at, that you're not good at, that you don't do well, like, stop doing those things, or do less of those things. The things that you're good at, the things that empower you, that light you up, do more of that, because it won't feel like work. Like, this stuff is just like drudgery, right? Like, you're I don't know what the word is. I don't know if that's even a word, but
no, you nailed it, sister.
Feel like this like sludge, like it's so hard to do it. But when you're in that space that you're meant for, man, it just, it goes. It's awesome. So I love that. That's a great piece of advice. And sometimes it takes a little bit to figure that out, and that's okay. And I think sometimes we feel like we have to do it. We have to do it right now.
Yeah.
We have time. It's okay. Like, because just doing something to do it may spin your wheels, and you may have to backtrack and come back to this point. So taking the time now. I love the saying, like, slow is steady, steady is smooth, smooth is fast, right? So sometimes slowing down initially to go fast is really helpful. So I think that hits it perfectly. So okay, so for everyone who has enjoyed this, because I know I did, I learned so much. I'm so thankful to have you here. Where can we find you? Can we find you on social? How can we connect with you?
Okay, yeah. So I just started a business social media account. So that's another tip. Like, don't just put yourself out there, get over the fear of judgment. So you can find me at Hannah Buys Homes on Instagram or Facebook, or you can just friend me on regular Facebook or Instagram under Hannah Casey. And I'd love to talk to, I just love talking to investors. They're the coolest people. So anybody who has questions on this, you know, feel free to reach out, or anybody who just wants to talk investing.
I love it.
Fun.
So everyone go find her on social, follow her, connect with her. She is amazing. So thank you guys so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.